actually bare minimum settings to run it at all, so it had to be on low, and I'm kind of used to that. Yeah, that's all there is to it.
You don't relish, or I guess you don't miss seeing the awesome acid deaths from roaches and banelings?
Anything that would distract me, I wouldn't really like. And I've never played with it, so like there's nothing to miss. I don't know what it's like to play with that.
Sad day. What about you, Jeff?
Yeah. I actually play on high graphical settings. I don't play on ultra. That's first and foremost the obvious thing. I think I might be getting away with it on high. I'm with Russ. I live with Russ now, so he had me even reduce a few things for streaming purposes. And I just have never experienced any lag when I'm playing on the home server, NA. So I don't know that it affects it. And I even when I was living with Greg, I made the argument that I think on high latency you can see cloaked things better, or roaches moving below the ground, that kind of stuff. I don't necessarily know that that's true. I think they actually patched it so that low settings are just fine for that too. But I'm kind of a snob. I like how pretty the game is on high.
Yeah, I play on medium settings actually because it's kind of like a combination of the two. I feel like it's too shiny at higher settings, and at lower settings I just can't stand it. It's an injustice to the awesome game that Blizzard has made, in my opinion.
Yeah.
How about we talk about larva injection? Greg, how do you do your injects? There's a lot of different methods between hotkeying queens, hatcheries, and then the backspace stuff that I do, which In Control makes fun of me for. Which do you prefer?
I put all of my hatcheries on one hotkey, and then the queens just on progressively more. Hatcheries all on 4, then queens on 5, 6, 7, 8. I just double tap the queen to go around every base, and then manually inject.
Do you have an opinion on the backspace style?
Do you actually have it on the back?
No, I've moved it to W on my setup.
I think it's probably fine then. I've never actually experimented with it, but it seems like it could be good. So as long as you don't actually have it on backspace, because I think that's kind of ridiculous. But something on the left side of the keyboard, it seems fine.
Well, there you go, In Control. Turns out you were wrong.
It happens.
No, man. My queens are always running around like morons, so there's definitely merits for both, in my opinion. idrA, when do you feel like infestors should be used in ZvP, if at all, and what kind of unit composition do you need to make them effective?
There's the really heavy stalker stuff and stalker blink. Obviously, infestors are the intended counter. Hyperlink infestors is really good for stat. Jeff, you really need to do something about that. The typing and the microphone and stuff.
Oh, sorry, dude. I thought you were talking about the composition. I was like, what? I thought I was doing okay.
No, in general, I don't really like infestors that much in anything for a straight-up battle, just because their target priority is high and they die instantly.
Yeah, they do.
So, yeah.
What about you as a Protoss player In Control? Do you ever loathe seeing infestors, or do you just laugh when you see them?
Okay. There's people that make like 8 infestors, and I think that's wrong. I don't know where or when a Zerg could ever afford 8 infestors. But I think there's a lot of, like, I rely pretty heavily on my blink micro to position the stalkers in the right place or get under the corruptors. And I think you can do some pretty cute stuff. It's just kind of a question of the cost versus the utility. Infestors are incredibly weak. They're extremely fragile. And 200 gas is a huge, huge deficit from the Zerg. So building like 2 or 3 infestors and then them getting just caught in a bad situation and popped is like the end of the game for the Zerg, and that's just so fragile that it's kind of outrageous.
Okay. Okay. A couple more questions, and I'll let you guys do your plugs, and we'll wrap up for the night. How do you feel, Greg, about the Ultralisk in ZvP? Does it have a place? Is it worth ever getting against a good Protoss opponent?
Depends on the map. The maps we have, the short rest distance, and mostly pretty narrow and confined. No, you really need to be able to flank with them with the ultras. And the short rush distance, obviously, it just takes so long to build, and everyone's 6 supply. So it's the kind of unit where you really have to free up supply to get it, and then it's going to be a long time until you actually have them.
Right.
So you need to have the time to get them out. And on most of these maps, you don't have that. So given that, no, I don't think they're ever something that you really want to use.
In Control?
I think they are, like, I'm not one to usually complain about the design of the game, but I think the Ultralisk is completely misdesigned. Like, I feel like in both ZVT and ZvP, you can surprise your opponent 100% with the Ultralisk, and then they're like, oh god, now I need to Chrono Boost out 2 Immortals, or oh god, I need to start going Marauders now. And they can, and both Protoss and Terran have easy access to that.
Yeah.
So it's just, it used to be like in Brood War, because I played this way a lot. Greg can tell you about that and complain about it. But I used to be like, Ling, Lurker, and then boom, there's 12 Ultras with 5 armor.
Yeah.
And there's almost nothing you could do about them. They would just run amok. And they don't have that same effect in StarCraft 2. It's just like, oh wow, he went Ultras. That's interesting. Okay, my Colossus still killed him. I guess I should get a few more Immortals out, though, just to play it safe. But there are some cool strategies, like Zelnick has done a couple, like, straight melee style, where he's dropping Banelings and Ling and Fester, and then he switches into a heavy Ultralisk. And it beat me. I mean, it caught me off guard, but then I played him again, and I added Stargate play with Void Race with the Colossus, and there's nothing he could do.
It turns out Ultralisk can't jump.
Yeah, he just doesn't have any... You know, his gas is all soaked up in that composition. It's pure melee, so there's Void Race sitting up there doing... With the 20% damage bonus, I have no idea how much it is, but it's astronomical, so...
Yeah, Zelnick's actually been kind of turning some heads with his ZvP style here lately. I'm kind of interested to see if it develops any further. I will say... Oh, go ahead, idrA.
It's too weak. It's too weak against Void Race. That's another reason I wasn't really aiming for Broodlords there. I just feel that Hive Tech is almost obsolete given the massive buff to... or the buff against massive to Void Rays.
Yeah.
I really think the only reason to go Hive is for 3/3 upgrades right now.
Yeah, and adrenal glands, they're not what they were in Brood War, are they?
Yeah, well, it's not so much that the glands are bad, it's just the Zerglings. There's so much the splash damage and the existence of force field and building walls. It's just Zerglings aren't very good. They die so fast, and it's hard to use them to really harass or be annoying anyway.
All right.
But on that point though, I like how Greg used them even in this last game. Like, they're really good as reinforcing units once the sentries are gone and the Colossus count is low. Because they get in and they're good against Stalkers. They're just terrible against Zealots, but most Protoss, they're not rolling around with 19 Zealots at that stage. They're like pure Stalker. Yeah. And they can run down and pin units too. So I like them used that way. It's just unfortunate because you can't use them how you did in Brood War, where they could be purely surround units that did fine DPS, you know.
Oh man.
So they have a different role for sure.
So crazy.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I think one of the best functions of the Zergling, especially in ZvP in StarCraft 2, is the way that that Protoss units kind of overkill. You know, if an Immortal shoots a Zergling, that's a lot of damage that doesn't go into a Roach. You know. So, anyway, one more question, and then we'll wrap up for tonight. Let me see if I can find a really good one. All right, I'm going to run a little theory craft for the future of StarCraft 2. idrA, seeing as how technically only 1/3 of the game is out, given that there are 2 expansions to follow, what sort of units do you feel Zerg needs or should have that would kind of you know, not stuff that would, obviously the Defiler would totally break the game, but what kind of units should Zerg get moving forward?
I think very powerful Hive Tech Spellcaster. Obviously not the Defiler, or a very modified Defiler. But we're lacking in both good Spellcasters and good Hive Tech units. And like I said, I feel there's very little reason to go to Hive right now. I feel our Lair Tech is really, you win or lose at Lair, and then Hive is maybe a killing blow, or otherwise just a nothing. So I think a Hive Tech Spellcaster would be the first thing I'm looking for.
All right. Jeff, you have a suggestion or
for like changes?
Well, I mean, just you know, if you were to sit there and say, hey, this is what I would like to see come in Heart of the Swarm. This is a good unit that would help Zerg, like Scourge, for example.
They've kind of already said they're not going to add new units.
Yeah.
So I guess my realistic changes would be like make the Adrenal upgrade more significant, like maybe 20%. I don't know. Like, I'm obviously just spitballing, but it's already like, it's like 20% more attack. Make it 25, 30% more attack, and then add 5 health, something silly like that, but it just makes Lings more viable, and then make that upgrade worthwhile. They need to redesign the Ultras or change the way it functions in this game. It's just, like I said, I don't see any utility for that at all in PV or in ZvP or ZvT, and obviously not ZvZ. So it's one of those units that's like, if it does show up, it's cool. Like, it'll show up in some ZVTs and it's got a place because they're going like super